Your brain has a design flaw. It reminds you about dead batteries in your flashlight exactly when you cannot replace them. When you pass batteries in a store, it stays quiet. Welcome to Whispering Pages. If you're here just for the summary, skip to the next chapter. For the rest of us, let's ease in. Let the room hold you where you are. The brain just before sleep is in a uniquely receptive state, and what you hear now settles deeper. Tonight we're in Getting Things Done by David Allen, published in 2001. It is one of the most influential productivity books of the last 2 decades. Not because it helps you do more, because it helps you stop carrying everything in your head. So let's begin. Close your eyes if you'd like, and let's whisper through this one together. David Allen spent more than 2 decades coaching executives, senior managers, and professionals who should, by any reasonable measure, have had things under control. They had assistants. They had color-coded planners. They had systems on their desks and frameworks in their heads. And yet, almost every one of them sat behind mountains of unprocessed paper, dozens of unresolved commitments. A quiet, persistent sense that something important was slipping through the cracks. That feeling, Allen came to understand, was not a time problem. It was not an effort problem. It was a thinking problem. Getting Things Done was first published in 2001. It drew on more than 20 years of coaching sessions with everyone from executives at global firms to homemakers reorganizing their daily lives. Allen was not an academic. He was a practitioner. He had sat in thousands of offices, watched what worked and what didn't, and built a method from what he actually observed, not from theory. His central insight was deceptively simple. Your brain is not designed to store the things you need to do. Your brain is designed to have ideas, to make connections, to solve problems. Asking it to also hold your to-do list is asking the wrong tool to do the wrong job. And most of us have been asking our brains to do exactly that for most of our working lives. Here is what happens when you do. Every time you tell yourself you should do something, a part of your mind files it as an open commitment. Allen called these open loops. And the part of your mind that holds open loops has no sense of time. It has no concept of later. It only knows now. So when you tell yourself you'll deal with that pile of papers, return that call, or finally clean out the garage, some part of you insists, you should be doing that right now. Even while you're eating. Even while you're trying to rest. Open loops are not just tasks. They are anything that holds a piece of your attention because it hasn't been resolved. The business card from the conference you meant to follow up on. The email flagged for reply that keeps catching your eye. The conversation you keep postponing. Each one creates a small, continuous drain on your mental energy. Allen borrowed a concept from psychology to explain why this matters so much. The mind has a short-term memory that functions something like computer RAM. It has limited capacity. When you fill it with hundreds of unresolved commitments, everything slows down. You feel scattered. You feel behind. You feel the pressure without being able to point to its source. Research has confirmed this pattern. Unfinished tasks occupy the mind more persistently than completed ones. The mind keeps returning to open loops, trying to close them. In small quantities, this is useful. In large quantities, accumulated across every area of your life and work, it is exhausting. And here is the part that is hardest to accept. Most people have lived with this weight for so long that they assume it is simply what being a professional feels like. They don't realize there is another way. Allen borrowed a metaphor from the martial arts to describe the alternative. He called it mind like water. In karate, the ideal is a mind that responds to whatever it meets with exactly the right force. No overreaction, no underreaction. Total, clean responsiveness. When you throw a pebble into still water, the water responds in perfect proportion. Then it returns to calm. Most of us, Alan argues, don't operate that way. We overreact to small interruptions. We underreact to important commitments we've been avoiding. We feel scattered when we should be focused. And the reason, almost always, is the same. Too many open loops, stored in the wrong place, inside the mind. Getting the right things out of your head and into a trusted system outside it is where everything in this book begins. Alan organizes the work of managing your commitments into 5 distinct stages: collect, process, organize, review, do. These 5 stages, he argues, are what everyone does, consciously or not. The problem is that most people run them simultaneously and poorly, mixing them together in ways that undermine each one. Separating the stages is the key. Let's begin with collect. To collect, in Alan's framework, means to capture every open loop in a trusted external system rather than your head. A physical inbox on your desk. An email inbox. A notepad. A voice recorder. Whatever the tool, the goal is the same. Get every commitment, every open question, and every outstanding task out of your mind, into something you can see and review. Most people's collection systems are partial and untrustworthy. They have a pile on the desk, a stack of unread emails, some half-started notes on their phone, a few things written on sticky notes, and a dozen commitments still living entirely in memory. None of these points are fully trusted. None are reviewed consistently, and the mind knows it. Alan has 2 rules for collection. First, keep the number of collection points as small as possible. The fewer inboxes you have to review, the more likely you are to trust and empty them. Second, empty your collection tools regularly. Not completing everything inside them. Just making a decision about every item and moving it to where it belongs. That second rule is where the entire system lives or dies. Processing is the second stage, and it is the one most productivity systems skip entirely. To process an item, you ask one question: what is this, and what do I need to do about it? The answer always starts with a simple branch. Is any action required? If no action is required, you have 3 options. Throw the item away if it has no value. Move it to a someday maybe list for things that might become relevant later. Or file it as reference material you might want to look up one day. If an action is required, you need to identify the very next physical step. Not work on the proposal. That is a category, not an action. A next action is something you could physically walk up and do. Open the document and write the first paragraph. Email Sarah to request the quarterly numbers. Call the vendor to ask about timeline. Specific, visible, concrete. Once you've identified the next action, Alan introduces a rule that has become one of the most quoted ideas in the book. The 2-minute rule. If the next action will take less than 2 minutes to complete, do it now. Not later. Not when you have a better block of time. Right now. The logic is pure economics. Every item you file away for later, you will pick up again. Work through it again. Decide again what to do with it. That overhead, multiplied across dozens or hundreds of small items, adds up to an enormous hidden cost. If something takes less than 2 minutes, handling it now is cheaper than filing it away and coming back to it. For anything that takes longer than 2 minutes, you have two choices. If someone else is better placed to handle it, delegate it and track it on a list you check regularly. If you need to do it yourself, defer it and record the next action in your system for later. There are 2 more rules Alan applies to the processing stage, and they are deceptively important. Process items from the top of the pile, one at a time. Do not scan for the most manageable or most interesting item. Start at the top. Make a decision about each thing before you move to the next. This discipline prevents the piling that most people do when they sort by preference and skip the hard items. And never put something back into your inbox once you've picked it up. Once you touch it, you decide what it is and where it belongs. Not back into the pile. This one rule, practiced consistently, changes the nature of your inbox. It goes from a source of anxiety to a simple flow of inputs you process and move along. The goal of these first 2 stages is not to finish everything. It is to process everything. To make sure every open loop has been captured, examined, and given a decision. When that's done, nothing is living in your head on borrowed time. Once you've processed an item and identified the next action, you need somewhere to put the reminder. This is where organizing comes in. Alan identifies several core categories of reminders. Together, they form a complete external inventory of your commitments. The first and most fundamental is your projects list. Alan defines a project as any desired outcome that requires more than one action step to complete. That definition is broader than most people expect. A project does not need to be complex or important. If completing it requires more than one step, it belongs on the projects list. Writing a report is a project. Getting your car inspected is a project if it involves a call and a visit. The projects list is not a place for details or plans. It is a master inventory. A list of stakes in the ground reminding you that something is still in motion. The value of this list is simple. You review it regularly to make sure every project has at least one next action visible in your system. A project with no next action is a project that is stuck. The projects list makes that visible. The second key structure is your next actions lists, organized by context. Context means the tool or location you need to execute an action. Alan recommends grouping actions by where you need to be or what you need to have. A list called calls, for things that require a phone. At computer, for things that require a screen. Errands, for things to do while you're out. Agendas, for things to discuss with a specific person the next time you see them. This organization is more powerful than it might sound. When you're sitting at your desk with 20 minutes and your phone in hand, you don't want to sort through a mixed list. Errands mixed with deep creative work. You want to see what's available to you right now, given your location and your tools. Context-based lists give you that. You stop making decisions about what to do and start simply choosing from what's available. The third essential list is your waiting for list. This tracks anything you've delegated or requested from someone else. The feedback your colleague promised. The package on its way. The approval you're waiting for. Nothing that depends on someone else falls through the cracks when you're reviewing this list regularly. The fourth is the someday maybe list. This is for ideas, projects, and possibilities you're genuinely interested in but not ready to commit to right now. The trip you might take. The skill you want to develop. The side project that's been in the back of your mind for 2 years. These don't belong on your active lists, where they would create guilt every time you saw them without acting. They belong on the someday maybe list, where they wait until they're ready to become real. And fifth is the calendar, which Alan reserves strictly for things that must happen on a specific day or at a specific time. Hard commitments with genuine time constraints. Not aspirational tasks. Not things you hope to do on Thursday. Most people overload their calendars with items they'd like to accomplish, and then feel like failures when the day doesn't unfold as planned. Alan's calendar is reserved for the hard landscape. What must happen? Everything else lives on the next actions lists, available to be chosen based on context, time, and energy. Now, led above all these immediate tools is what Alan calls the 6-level model for reviewing your own work. Think of it as a set of altitudes. At the runway level are your current actions, the daily immediate tasks you're tracking. At 10,000 feet are your current projects, the active outcomes you're working toward right now. At 20,000 feet are your areas of responsibility, the ongoing domains where you hold commitments. At work, strategy, staff, finances, customers. In life, health, family, relationships, home. At 30,000 feet are your 1 to 2 year goals. What you want to have in place within the next year or two. At 40,000 feet is your 3 to 5 year vision, where your career, your company, or your life is heading over the medium term. And at 50,000 feet is life itself. Purpose. Why do you exist? Most productivity advice starts at the top. Clarify your purpose. Set your vision. Work backward to goals, projects, and actions. Alan argues this approach often fails in practice, because most people are too overwhelmed at the runway level to think clearly about anything higher. His system works bottom up. Get control of the runway first. Clear the pile. Build the trusted system. The higher altitudes become more accessible naturally, because the noise at the ground level is no longer drowning everything out. Collecting, processing, and organizing build the system. But the system only works if you actually use it. This is the fourth stage, review. The centerpiece of Alan's review process is something he calls the weekly review. It is, in his words, the master key to the whole system. Without it, lists go stale. The project's list drifts out of date. The waiting for list fills with forgotten items. And gradually, without realizing it, your mind starts picking up the slack again, holding things the system should be holding. The weekly review is a regular time set aside, usually at the end of the work week, to get completely current. You begin by gathering anything that has accumulated since your last review. Loose papers, notes from conversations, business cards, ideas written down anywhere. Everything goes through the collect and process cycle. You review your calendar. Look back at the past week to see if anything created a new commitment you haven't yet captured. Look forward at the coming week to spot time-sensitive actions or preparation needed. You go through your projects list and confirm that every project has at least one next action attached to it. If a project has no next action, it is stuck. The weekly review is the moment to unstick it. Then you review your next actions, waiting for, and someday maybe lists. Add things. Cross things off. Let things go that no longer apply. Move items from someday maybe into active projects when the time is right. Alan says the review takes between 1 and 2 hours when done properly. The feeling it produces, he says, is similar to the feeling most people have the Friday before a long vacation. You've cleared the deck. You're genuinely current. That feeling, he argues, does not have to be reserved for vacations. It can be how you start every single week. The fifth stage is do. And here Alan offers 3 models for deciding what to work on at any given moment. The first model uses 4 criteria, applied in sequence. Context first. What can you actually do, given where you are and what tools you have? Time available. How long until you must be somewhere else? Energy available. What are you genuinely capable of right now, at this point in your day? And then priority. Given all of the above, what gives you the most value in this moment? These 4 filters generate a practical decision without requiring a complicated priority system. The second model distinguishes 3 kinds of work. There is doing predefined work, meaning you are working through your next actions lists and moving along commitments you've already planned. There is doing work as it shows up, meaning something unexpected arrives and you respond to it. And there is defining your work, meaning you are clearing your inbox, reviewing your lists, processing your notes. Alan argues that this third type is itself work. It deserves planned time, not just the scraps between tasks. The third model for choosing what to do draws on the 6 altitudes covered earlier. Sometimes what looks like the most urgent thing at the runway level isn't what matters most at 20,000 feet. Alan also describes what he calls the natural planning model. Your brain uses this model constantly, for everything it genuinely wants to accomplish. The last time you went out to dinner with someone, your brain worked through a full planning sequence without your conscious direction. First you had a purpose, the desire to eat and connect. Then a vision, an image of what a good evening would look and feel like. Then you started thinking through options and details, brainstorming. Then you sorted your thoughts and identified what to do first. For simple things, this happens automatically and invisibly. For complex projects, people often skip steps or do them in the wrong order, and that is when projects feel stuck or unclear. Alan's model follows the brain's natural sequence. Purpose first. Why are we doing this? Principles next. What standards or boundaries apply? Then vision. What does success look like? Then brainstorming. What ideas and approaches might be relevant? Then organizing. What are the key components, in what sequence? And finally, next actions. What is the immediate, physical first step? You don't need to formalize all 5 phases for most things. A quick errand needs only a next action. But for projects that feel stuck, or for important situations that keep staying unclear, walking through all 5 phases deliberately almost always breaks the logjam. Not because you've acquired new information, because you've structured your thinking in the right order. Let's look at the 3 principles that make Alan's system so enduring. The first is the power of collection. When everything you've committed to lives in one trusted external system, something shifts. You stop overcommitting, because you can see the full inventory of what you've already said yes to. You stop feeling vague guilt about everything, because each item has received a conscious decision. It is on your active list, in your reference files, on your someday maybe list, or in the trash. Alan makes a point about broken agreements that is difficult to forget. The anxiety most people carry is not caused by having too much to do. It is caused by breaking agreements with themselves. Every time you tell yourself you'll do something and you don't, your mind registers a broken agreement. It doesn't distinguish between important commitments and trivial ones. It tracks all of them equally. There are only 3 ways to resolve this. Stop making the agreement consciously. Complete it. Or renegotiate it by removing it from your mental radar with full awareness. Everything else is just carrying weight you've never chosen to carry. The second principle is the power of the next action decision. Alan found something counterintuitive over years of coaching. Bright, creative people tend to procrastinate more than others. Not because they are lazy, because their imaginations are too good. When a sensitive, intelligent person thinks about doing their taxes or having a difficult conversation, their mind doesn't just see the task. It generates a vivid, detailed movie of everything that could go wrong. The complications, the missing pieces, the uncomfortable outcomes. The mind reads this as a threat signal, and it avoids. The antidote is to define the next physical action. Not the full project. Just the immediate, concrete, visible step. Look up the accountant's number instead of do my taxes. When you focus on one small specific action, the overwhelming movie collapses. The task becomes something you can actually start. Alan saw this at the organizational level too. When teams adopt the question, "What is the next action?" as a standard practice at the end of every meeting and conversation, performance improves quickly. Meetings end with real steps assigned to real people. Projects stop stalling. People stop waiting to be told what to do next. The third principle is the power of outcome focusing. Your mind is a pattern recognition machine. Give it a clear picture of a desired outcome, and it begins identifying relevant pathways it ignored before. This is not mystical. It is how the brain's attention filtering system works. You notice what you've told your mind to look for. Alan connects this to daily work. The question, "What does done look like here?" applies to every project, every meeting, every interaction. What outcome are you moving toward? And what is the very next physical step to move toward it? These two questions, applied consistently, are the engine of the whole system. Now for a few honest words about where this book falls short. Getting things done requires genuine maintenance. The weekly review is not optional. Skip it for 2 or 3 weeks and your lists become unreliable. You start trusting them less, and then you start carrying things in your head again. For people already overwhelmed, building and sustaining this system demands more discipline than the book fully acknowledges. A second honest limitation is that getting things done is value neutral. It will help you process commitments efficiently, but it says almost nothing about which commitments are worth making. The system helps you do many things well. It doesn't help you decide whether those things are the right things. If that gap interests you, Essentialism by Greg McKeown is a natural companion. McKeown asks the prior question, what is essential? What should you actually be working on? Alan tells you how to manage what you've decided to do. McKeown helps you decide what deserves your commitment in the first place. If the challenge is sustaining the system over time, Atomic Habits by James Clear goes deeper on behavioral science. Alan describes what to build. Clear explains how to build habits that last. A few takeaways. First, if something is on your mind, it belongs in a trusted external system. Your mind is not the right container for it. Second, the 2-minute rule is more powerful than it sounds. If something takes less than 2 minutes, handle it now. The hidden overhead of deferring small things is enormous. Third, when you feel overwhelmed, ask how many open loops you're carrying. Capture them all. Write them down. You may be surprised how much lighter you feel from simply getting them out of your head. And finally, a trusted system, reviewed consistently, is not about rigid control. It is about freedom. When your mind knows nothing important is being forgotten, it stops scanning for what's missing. It stops interrupting you at midnight. And it has room to do the thing it does best. Think. There is one question worth carrying into sleep tonight. What is living in your head right now that would feel lighter if you simply wrote it down? Sleep well. And we'll see you at Whispering Pages for the next one.